Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to an all new beauty battle. So I like to film these types of videos every 6 months or so, going through some of the new products that have launched recently that I've tried out and put them against other products in my collection that I either super love or that are very reminiscent of the new product. And that just helps me to evaluate my collection a little bit better, and it also helps me to share with you what I think your money is better spent on. So let's hop right into it. The very first set of products I wanted to talk about is the Dior Forever Glow Star Filter versus the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. So the Charlotte Tilbury was the first one that did this type of glowy base product that could also be mixed into foundations or be used as a spot highlighter. Charlotte Tilbury was the first one, and there have been so many brands that have tried to do the same thing. e.l.f. did a really good job. I understand Catrice has a new one. There are a lot of brands that have tried to do this, but the most recent one is from Dior. So this is the Star Filter, and this is very similar in that you can use it as a base, you can use it as a mix-in for your foundation, you can use it as a spot highlight. It's a very all-encompassing type product. So the main differences between the two is the Charlotte Tilbury actually has a slightly lower price tag than the Dior. For the Charlotte Tilbury, this is of course a mini, so this has a very low price tag, and I believe this only comes in 4 shades. The Dior is very expensive, but it does come in a wider range of shades. I believe there was about 8 or 9 shades when I was initially looking this up. I do have the shade 0 in the Dior. I have the shade 1 Fair in the Charlotte Tilbury, so the lightest of the two. You'll see the lightest in the Dior is actually quite a bit lighter than the Charlotte Tilbury. Another thing, the Charlotte Tilbury comes with a doe foot applicator, while the Dior actually has a pump, which is really nice. Another major difference is that the Dior is mostly skincare based. So this is supposed to be a very hydrating, very nourishing product. I believe this is around 80% skincare ingredients. And on the face, I find the Dior gives a really beautiful luminous glow. I actually do have it under my foundation today. And I find the Charlotte Tilbury is a bit glowier and can almost have sort of a metallic effect, like it's almost too much, whereas this just makes your skin look so beautiful, so healthy, and so hydrated. So I do think this is a little bit more subtle. This is still a beautiful product, but I do think in this category the Dior wins. I do think Dior did it better. I like that it's packed with skincare ingredients, that it's good for my skin. I like that this really isn't as metallic as the Charlotte Tilbury, so you can just do a lot more with it. I find that this is such a beautiful base for more matte, more drying foundations. Today I have it under the House Labs. I love the House Labs foundation, but that one has a tendency to be a little bit more dry if I'm not careful. This makes sure that that doesn't happen and that my base looks flawless. So I absolutely love this for that. Because they have such a good shade range, I actually kind of use this to adjust shades of some of my other foundations that may be a little bit too deep, like one shade too deep. I can mix in some of this and it becomes a perfect match. So I love that as well. And it also does not mess with the integrity of the foundation. So I just think this is such a phenomenal product. I like that it has a pump, so it's a little bit more hygienic. And it's just such a beautiful product. This is one that I can tell you without a doubt, when I run out of this, which I will because I use it so much. I use it almost every single time I do my makeup. When I run out of this, I will repurchase it. This does retail for 70 Canadian dollars, and I don't care because it's that good. This is also a product that, because I can use it as a mix-in and adjust shades, I can adjust finishes a little bit. The things that it does allows me to get more use out of other foundations in my collection that I might not otherwise use as much. The Charlotte Tilbury can too, but like I said, it's a little bit too glowy, so I do prefer the Dior. When I use up my Charlotte Tilbury, I probably won't repurchase this. I just don't see a need. This one, I will repurchase every time. So a foundation that came out recently is the Makeup Forever HD Skin Hydra Glow Foundation. I do have a full review and wear test of this one. I decided to put this against the original HD Skin foundation. So the differences between these two might be fairly obvious, but I wanted to share my thoughts anyway. So these both claim to be medium coverage. I think the HD Skin actually has a little bit more coverage than the Hydra Glow. This is still a nice medium coverage, but I think this gives just a little bit more and is a little bit more buildable. They both feel very lightweight on the skin. They both make the skin look stunning and flawless and are just so easy to work with. They both work beautifully with a brush or a sponge. I prefer a sponge with this one in particular, but I think they're both excellent foundations. That being said, I actually prefer the Hydra Glow. The Hydra Glow is what the name says. It is a much glowier base, but it's not too glowy. It's more glowy than the NARS Light Reflecting, but not as glowy as that super glowy Safe Foundation. So it's somewhere in the middle. I think this makes the skin look so beautiful, so healthy, so hydrated, and it just gives the most beautiful glow. And you can easily take that glow down with a nice powder. This one really doesn't have any glow to it, but it is a little bit more coverage and it is a little bit more perfecting. I do think that if you have dry skin, absolutely go for the Hydra Glow because it's going to feel so comfortable and nourishing on the skin. If you have oily skin, definitely go for the HD Skin. Those are the main differences. I really like the HD Skin, but I do prefer the Hydra Glow, again, just because it does give me a little bit more of a nourishing property to it. At first, I thought I liked the HD Skin better just because you get a little bit more coverage, but I would rather my foundation be comfortable. If I'm looking for more coverage, I can easily grab for a foundation that is supposed to provide more coverage. So of the two of these, I like the Hydra Glow foundation better because it is more comfortable, glowy, and hydrating on my very dry skin. But these are both excellent foundations. With these two, it's more just a matter of your skin type. I actually forgot to mention with these foundations, my perfect shade is 1R02. I do have the HD Skin in 1N06. That's not the right shade. 1R02 is absolutely perfect for me. Okay, two concealers that came out this year around the same time. We have the Laura Mercier Real Flawless Weightless Perfecting Concealer against the Fenty Wear Even Hydrating Longwear Concealer. So these came out around the same time. The Fenty, I feel like, got a little bit more buzz, which is interesting because when these came out, it was right around the time that the Laura Mercier Real Flawless Weightless Perfecting Foundation was getting a ton of hype. So I really expected this one to get a lot more than it did. I wear tested both of these. I think they're both really nice. They both have a nice medium coverage. I think the Laura Mercier gives a little bit more. The Fenty is more hydrating. The Laura Mercier dries down a little bit more. They're both very blendable. They look beautiful on the skin. I do think the Laura Mercier, while it does dry down a little bit more, it's just as blendable, but it definitely wears a lot longer. Like if you wanted to use one of these to spot conceal, I would absolutely recommend the Laura Mercier over the Fenty. The Fenty is really nice, really hydrating, but I don't find it to be as long wearing as the Laura Mercier. So for that reason, I do choose the Laura Mercier over the Fenty. I think they're both great, but the Laura Mercier is definitely better in my opinion. In the Laura Mercier, I have the shade 1C1, which is perfect. And in the Fenty, I have the shade 120N, which is also a really nice shade for me. So they're both beautiful concealers, but I definitely prefer the Laura Mercier because it gives amazing coverage. It feels weightless, it's blendable, but it does dry down so that it doesn't budge, and it's better for spot concealing, and it just wears a little bit longer. So this round definitely goes to the Laura Mercier. Next, we're going to talk about two lip treatments that came out recently. First, we have the Ole Henriksen Pout Preserve Peptide Lip Treatment against the Tower 28 Lip Softy Tinted Lip Treatment. These are both lovely lip balms. The Tower 28 is definitely a little less expensive. They are both available at Sephora. In the Tower 28, I have the shade Blood Orange Vanilla. In the Ole Henriksen, I have the shade Strawberry Sorbet. I do like the shade of the Ole Henriksen better, but I was very limited on shades to pick from with the Tower 28. The Tower 28 has this more rounded tip applicator. Kind of definitely brings me back to the early 2000s, whereas the Ole Henriksen has this more precise sort of tip. It's a little bit more like the Summer Fridays, if you're familiar with that one. Both of these smell really, really good, and they both feel really, really nice on the lips. The thing that's different, I think, if you're looking for something that is more deeply hydrating, I would absolutely recommend the Ole Henriksen. This one is thicker, and I feel like it sticks around longer, and it's just doing more in general to hydrate the lips. The Tower 28, it leaves behind a really beautiful tint to the lips. It's very, very shiny. It looks so pretty. They're both very, very shiny, but this one is definitely a little bit thinner. So I think if you're deciding between the two and you're looking for something that's more like a super glossy lip balm, then I think you'll be fine with the Tower 28. It's pretty, it's shiny, it smells good. But if you're looking for something that's really going to get in there and deeply hydrate the lips, then I would definitely go with the Ole Henriksen. For my own personal preferences, I go with the Ole Henriksen because I tend to have drier lips. So I love something that is going to deeply hydrate my lips, and I can't stand the feeling when my lips are dry. So I absolutely love and recommend this one. I like the shade better. They're both really shiny, but I just love how this feels on my lips. It feels so special. This just feels like a gloss, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think it has a place, but this one is the one that is much more of a lip treatment and definitely my favorite. Next, I want to talk about some liquid highlighters. We have the Dior Forever Glow Maximizer in the shade Pink against the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Beauty Light Wand in Spotlight. So these shades are not dupes, of course, but they do something very, very similar. Again, I think the Charlotte Tilbury is a few dollars less expensive. I will say that. The Charlotte Tilbury does have that very well-known floof ball applicator that isn't always the most popular. The Dior actually has this really nice doe foot, which is really quite nice. I think between the two, they are both beautiful. They are both very glowy. They both look absolutely stunning on the skin. In comparing the two, I would say that the Charlotte Tilbury is maybe just a pinch more glowy. So it really depends what you're going for. But this one I think is a tiny bit more subtle when you blend it out. And on a no makeup day, I would go for this one, whereas this one would be a little bit too much for a no makeup day, in my opinion. So I do think the Charlotte Tilbury is a little bit more intense than the Dior, but they are both very glowy and beautiful. Between the two, I do prefer the packaging of the Dior. I like that we get a doe foot. I just think that's a lot nicer. And these have been known to explode, especially on airplanes. That's not a huge deal for me personally. Just don't bring this. But packaging wise, I do prefer the Dior, but I like the glow of the Charlotte Tilbury a little bit better. Because in the Flawless Filter products, I don't want a glowy metallic base or mix in for foundations, but my highlight, I might want something a little more amped up. So I think this round does go to the Charlotte Tilbury. It does. I do prefer this. Again, I prefer the packaging of the Dior, but I do like the effect and look of this product just a tiny bit better. So this round I think is going to Charlotte Tilbury, but just know I do prefer that Dior packaging. Okay, the next round is plumping glosses. So I have pulled the new Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Big Lip Plumpgasm Lip Gloss, and I have put this against the Lawless Forget the Filler Lip Plumping Line Smoothing Gloss. Both have very beautiful packaging. I do love the Charlotte Tilbury packaging. I think she goes above and beyond with her packaging. I think it's absolutely stunning. I hate the name of the product, but the packaging is absolutely stunning. You do get this really large doe foot applicator that actually does have a really nice tip to really line around the edges of the lips. It's really, really nice. This is incredibly shiny. It's not at all sticky, but it burns. It definitely has a sting to it. It says it has like this hot to cold technology. To me, I feel that at first, but after that it just feels like a ton of little needles in my lips, and it's incredibly uncomfortable. So if you can't stand that, I would definitely stay away from this. I wouldn't even begin to recommend it, but it does look really, really pretty and really glossy. The Lawless Forget the Filler Lip Plumping Line Smoothing Gloss is another favorite plumping gloss of mine. What I love about this is that it does not sting at all. There is the slightest tingle to it when you put it on, but it's so slight that I don't even notice it half the time. This has a more unique applicator that kind of is designed to hug the lips, which I think is nice. This one is also quite a bit thicker than the Charlotte Tilbury, and this one, if you do over apply it, it does have a tendency to do that kind of stringy thing between the lips, which I don't love. And the formula is a little bit more on the sticky side than the Charlotte Tilbury. That being said, these are both plumping glosses. They both do a beautiful job plumping up the lips. The Charlotte Tilbury I think is a little bit more expensive, but they both do a great job plumping the lips, making them look more full, and they're both incredibly shiny. If you don't mind a sting, I think you would really, really like the Charlotte Tilbury. If you cannot stand painful lip plumping products, absolutely go with the Lawless. I'm giving this one to the Lawless because I've loved these glosses for a long time. I have more than one shade. For the purposes of this video, I just pulled the shade Daisy Pink. I also have Rosy Outlook, which is one of my more commonly used glosses. And then in the Charlotte Tilbury, I have Fair Medium. I like them both, and I've worn this so many times since I first got it, but every single time I'm annoyed for the first 20 minutes because my lips are uncomfortable. But then after a certain point, I don't know if the tingle goes away or if my lips are just numb by that point. I think it's the latter, but this is a beautiful gloss. It's just that I just like this better because it doesn't hurt. So this round definitely goes to the Lawless, but if you don't mind a sting, I would absolutely go with the Charlotte Tilbury. I do love that it is not a sticky product, but for my own personal preferences, Lawless definitely takes this one. Okay, this next one is actually going to hurt me a little bit, I think. So this next round, we are comparing liquid shadows. We have the Give Beauty Longwear Mousse eyeshadows. I have the shade Midriff, and I'm putting this against the Lancome Idole Tint Liquid Eyeshadow and the shade 02. I believe this is Desert Sand. So the Give Beauty liquid shadows were one of my absolute most favorite products of 2023. This is one of the very best liquid shadows I have ever tried. I am somebody who does have oily eyelids, so I really need to set down a primer in order to use any eyeshadow if I want it to stick around, but especially with cream shadows, I have absolutely no chance if I don't put down a primer. This changed that for me. This is an incredible, incredible product from Give Beauty. The shade Midriff, first of all, is this beautiful shimmery taupe that is just so beautiful, so flattering. It will look beautiful in so many different skin tones. This blends out very easily, very quickly. It does have more of a moussey consistency, but it also just lasts all day long. I can get away without putting down a primer with this one, and it will stick around all day long, and it will not budge, it will not crease, it will not crack or break up. Nothing like that. It's just going to look so beautiful all day, and I love it. This has been such a favorite of mine. I have purchased other shades of this because I like it so much. This is an excellent product. This is, of course, just in a little squeeze tube, which isn't my favorite applicator, but it's still really, really nice. And this is definitely on the more affordable side for Sephora as well, which again, I love. I would say the only con to this is you've really got to work kind of quick with it. I would say you have 20 to 30 seconds once you put it down to get it blended out and in place, and then you're stuck there. From that point, you won't want to try to build it up or move it around or anything like that because you will run into issues. Do one eye at a time, get it all done in that 20 to 30 second time period, and you'll be so happy with how this looks. It's so incredibly stunning. But recently, I tried out the Lancome Idole Tint Liquid Eyeshadows. So these have my attention right away. I am a big fan of Lancome eye products in general, but it just has this really nicely shaped doe foot. It has this really unique kind of shape to it. It's kind of like a teardrop, but it's really flat on both sides. And it just makes it so lovely to really get into the eye contours and evenly spread out the product. It's so easy to work with. It's so beautiful. I think the reason it has these more narrow sides is so that you can use it as a liner if you want to do that as well. I've never done that. I just tend to put it all over the lid, spread it all out, blend around the edges, and call it a day. and I get the exact same effect as the Give Beauty. So again, wears all day, looks super beautiful on the lids, and I can use it without using a primer. So the Give Beauty is a little less pricey. I believe she has a larger shade range than the Lancome, but they both wear a really long time and they are both oily eyelid friendly if you don't want to use a primer. They're both very blendable. This one isn't as finicky as the Give Beauty, but I would still say you have about 30 seconds to work with it and make sure it's where you want it. But it's not quite as thick as the Give Beauty. This, like I said, is a little bit more of a mousse. This one is just a little bit thinner. So those are the differences there. I still apply them pretty much the same way. I think they're both absolutely stunning, and I have raved about the Give Beauty for so long, and I'm still shocked that I hear absolutely nobody talk about these. I have heard nobody else mention this product, and I don't know why, because it's such a favorite of mine. The Lancome though is so good. It does the exact same thing, and it has a nicer applicator. So even though it's a little bit more expensive, I'm going with the Lancome. I love these. I really, really do. I love the applicator on them so much. So as much as it hurts me to choose something over the Give Beauty, I'm gonna give this one to Lancome. I still love you so much, but Lancome takes this one, I think, just because it's a tiny bit less finicky and the applicator is amazing. And then finally, I wanted to compare two all matte eyeshadow palettes. So I pulled the Patrick Ta Major Dimension 3 palette. So this is an all matte option. Very, very beautiful. Very well loved palette. And I've put it against the new Makeup by Mario Master Mattes The Neutrals palette. Two all matte palettes that do give us some cooler toned options. So obviously the Patrick Ta does have these more cream shadows in here, and then you get a row of more cool tones and you get a row of neutrals. The Makeup by Mario, you also get 12 shades, but you don't get any of those creams. And this palette really leans a little bit more into those very true neutrals. So he doesn't necessarily split it up between warm and cool tones the way the Patrick Ta is. This one just leans much more into those true neutrals. In terms of price tag, the Makeup by Mario is a little bit more affordable, a little bit more. These are both pro makeup artist brands by two very, very talented artists. Two that I respect very, very much. I think the mattes in the Patrick Ta are more buttery and blendable, and I really truly enjoy them. Makeup by Mario, the mattes are also a really nice formula. They're not quite as buttery as the Patrick Ta, but they're still an excellent formula. Obviously in the Makeup by Mario you don't get the cream shadows, but if that's not important to you, that might not bother you. Again, the cream shadows really aren't my most used, so that doesn't bother me. So while I do like the Patrick Ta matte formula a little bit better and appreciate it for its butteriness that is so wonderful and makes it so blendable, the Makeup by Mario, there is something he has done to really refine the tones in these shadows that I just feel sets it apart from the other palettes. I feel like the mattes in the Patrick Ta are beautiful, but I can get those shades in a lot of my other palettes, whereas this one, like I said, he really drilled down to refine the tones of these shadows. And I think that's what makes this one special at the end of the day. So that being said, if you're looking for an all matte palette, I'm going to recommend the Makeup by Mario. Again, there's just something special about the tones in here. And while I have said that I do prefer the mattes from the Patrick Ta, these are not bad at all. The quality of these is still phenomenal. I just think the Patrick Ta are a little bit more buttery, but the Makeup by Mario is still excellent. It's a little less expensive, and the tones of these shades is more special. So I'm going to give this one to the Makeup by Mario over the Patrick Ta. So that is it for today. That is some of my very favorite products put head to head and letting you know which one I would choose if I absolutely had to. I did not make it easy on myself. I really challenged myself to pull some of my very favorite products. So I was really surprised at the results of some of them as well. So let me know down below your thoughts. Did I mention any of your favorite products in here? I just love hearing from you guys so much. Thank you so very much for watching as always. And if you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!